Night in the Woods, a 2017 adventure game by Infinite Fall, is among the best indie titles to come out over the last 5 years. It has a small but passionate fan base, due in large part to its relatable themes, vibrant art style, and an authentically written cast of characters. Ask anyone who's played Night in the Woods their thoughts on the title, and they'll likely say something along the lines of, "Well, I loved Greg, and the entire first half of the game was a wonderful ride. But man, it sure did take a left turn into a rut of Rust Belt madness at the end there." Such a statement is entirely fair. The game's first half, which centers around hangouts with old friends, is vastly different than the back end, which focuses on a series of investigation sequences and culminates in a standoff with an eldritch entity who's been lurking beneath Possum Springs for time immemorial. It's a huge departure, and for some, May's confrontation with his aforementioned cosmic deity is a leap too far for a game so grounded in the realities of small-town America. But not for me. For some reason, I've never felt that the plot jump was as extreme as others believe it to be. I didn't realize why until fairly recently, when May's struggles with mental illness began to mirror my own. Because as anyone who sought help for depression or anxiety will tell you, getting a diagnosis is often simple. Overcoming those difficulties is a different story entirely. And at the darkest, lowest of moments, battle with mental illness can feel just as hopeless as trying to understand the unknowable. For those unfamiliar with Night in the Woods, it kicks off when May, an anthropomorphic cat and college dropout, returns to her hometown of Possum Springs. Possum Springs is a Rust Belt town, clearly inspired by the suburbs around Pittsburgh, as evidenced by its penchant for hills, the local football team, a Steelers parody called the Smelters, and of course their love of pretzels and pierogies. At first, it seems that Possum Springs is a bit of a time capsule. Little has changed since May left, aside from a few closed down stores. The same cannot be said of the people. May's best friend Greg is in a committed relationship now, and he's planning on leaving Possum Springs as soon as he can, while B, a childhood friend, is reeling from the death of her mother, and as a result, is forced to bear a burden of responsibility that May is unable to understand. By the end of the game's first act, it's clear that May is just as stuck as the town of Possum Springs itself, unable to grow, unable to develop into anything approximating an adult. To illustrate this, the player follows May on a series of small quests, where they're given the choice of hanging out with B or Greg. Choose to hang out with Greg, and you'll engage in some largely escapist activities. Building robots, doing crimes, like breaking light fixtures with a baseball bat and fighting with knives. Spending time with B, however, involves more responsible activities, such as making dinner and helping her with a house call to fix a client's furnace. These small episodes are fantastic, and serve to demonstrate May's internal conflict. Does she continue to indulge in the juvenile, or does she settle down and pick up a 9-to-5 here in stagnant Possum Springs? It's a compelling question. And if you ever came home for a break from college with thoughts of dropping out, as I did back in 2012, then you know exactly what May is going through. Exposition abounds in these episodes as well. In what first starts out as small whispers, we learn that May has struggled with her mental health throughout her life. Specifically, May suffers from dissociative personality disorder, a condition where a person often feels disconnected or detached from oneself. They feel like merely an observer in their own body, and feel as though they have no control over their thoughts or actions. This is made explicitly clear in the game's second act, when May begins experiencing bizarre dreams in which she appears to be teleported to another world. In these sequences, the player is given a task, such as find 4 members of a band, or smash up some lights with a baseball bat, in order to return to the real world. Later, we learn just how significant the baseball bat is to May's life. When she was younger, she sent a kid to the hospital after beating him up with a bat during a dissociative episode. It's a harrowing revelation, one that probably could have been explored in greater detail when you consider the profound impact it had on her family. In May's final dream, she meets with an otherworldly cat god, which really signifies the game's shift in tone. If I were to hazard a guess, at the point where Night in the Woods starts to lose some people, I'd imagine it's right here. Though the cat god tosses a ton of cryptic, circular statements her way, it does give an important warning. There is a hole at the end of everything, it says, and it is coming. While it's not immediately clear what Cosmic Garfield means by this, it will become clear in the game's final act, when the link between the cosmic horror befalling the town and the existential horror of May's internal conflict is laid bare. But before we can get there, May attends a Halloween extravaganza delightfully named Harfest, where she witnesses a townsperson being kidnapped by a shadowy figure. May is certain that this is a ghost, and though her friends are varying levels of skeptical about this, they decide to support May and try to help her get to the bottom of it. What follows is a series of Scooby-Doo-like quests, where May, Bee, Greg, and Angus investigate historical locations around Possum Springs for more information on May's supposed ghost. Their detective work leads them to a dark and horrible truth. There's a cult in town, based out of an old mine, that worships a cosmic entity known as the Black Goat. This Black Goat resides at the bottom of an endless pit known as the hole at the end of everything, just as the cat god foretold. Over the years, the cult has sacrificed people, specifically members of the society who they don't think will be missed, such as homeless people and nonconformists, to the Black Goat in exchange for keeping the town prosperous. The cultists go on to reveal that May is one of the few people who can hear the Black Goat sing, insinuating that May's dreams, where she travels to other worlds, are actually a gift from this cosmic entity. Following a struggle with Ede, the cult's most powerful member, May ends up trapped in a hole in the old mine, where she is confronted by an unseen entity we can safely assume to be the Black Goat. In her conversation with the Black Goat, May comes to the revelation that the Black Goat is not only responsible for her supernatural abilities, but her dissociative personality disorder as well. She acknowledges that while the Black Goat will always have a hold over her, she doesn't need to overcome its influence forever. She just needs to escape it for now. May manages to do so and return to her friends. The epilogue that follows is worth discussing, but we'll save that for another time. Because it's here, in this climactic conversation, that Night in the Woods ties together its disparate plot threads into a cohesive whole. As drastic as it is to go from low-key hangouts in the first half of the game to exploring other dimensions and riding around in the Mystery Machine in the second, it is May's struggles with her mental health that binds them together. At first, May's mental health appears to be a purely existential issue. It's brought economic instability to her family, made her a pariah in the community, and forced her to leave college. But by the end, it's revealed to be a matter of cosmic severity, something unknowable, something inescapable. By exploring May's difficulties in this way, Night in the Woods is suggesting that often what is existential feels cosmic in its weight. And if you ever struggled with your mental health, then damn if that ain't true. About a year and a half ago, I took the frightening step of going to therapy to deal with my own mental health crisis. Ironically, like May, I thought I was having problems with anger management. But I soon learned that I was actually struggling with something far different: anxiety. The revelation that I've had anxiety my entire life was a watershed moment for me. Almost immediately, my life made sense in a way that it hadn't before. All of a sudden, I understood that many of the darkest moments from my past, from my college days, all the way back to my early childhood, were actually episodes of anxiety. That's exactly what May is experiencing here, in her conversation with the Black Goat. The sudden understanding that the difficulties of her past have not been random or meaningless. Rather, they've all been a part of something greater, something that up until now has been unknowable to her. Her demon has a name. But as transformative as such a revelation can be, it's equally terrifying to know that a force you just got a name for has had its claws in you for your entire life. What do you mean I have anxiety? I thought to myself. How am I just now finding out about this? How do I prepare for future anxious episodes? What do I tell my wife? What do I tell my parents? What about my friends? How do I beat this? Of all the questions, that final one was easily the most troubling. In subsequent sessions with my therapist, we quickly discovered that my anxiety is hereditary. It's been with my family as long as the union tooth has been with May's family, if not longer. And looking back at the generations, it's clear that so many who have come before me have failed to beat it. So standing where I am now, staring down this Leviathan, it sure as hell feels cosmic in its weight. It feels unfathomable, incomprehensible. I can't imagine that I'm the only person who feels that way about improving their mental health. And that's what makes the transition from existential horror to cosmic horror in Night in the Woods so poignant, despite the dramatic tonal shift. Fortunately, May does not leave us without some words of wisdom. She knows that even after she leaves the mine, her battle with the black goat, with her dissociative personality disorder, is far from over. It will come for her again someday. Just as my anxiety, your depression, your eating disorder, whatever ails you will track you down eventually. Because there's no perfect solution for a mental health crisis. No matter how many battles we win, the cosmic horror standing in our way will always feel insurmountable. It will always feel incomprehensible, unable to be fully overcome. But that's just the point. We can't ever defeat it completely. But we don't need to. As May says in her conversation with the black goat itself, and to be, should the player be awarded with a final conversation with her, nothing can save us forever. But a lot of things can save us today. When it comes to mental health, that's as good advice as any. We don't need a silver bullet. We just need to do whatever it takes to get us through to the next day. For May, it's Greg. It's the Snack Falcon. It's Bass Guitar and Demon Tower. For me, it's my wife, my daughters, my writing, and video games. And I hope you've got something similar on your side. Thanks for watching. This is my first video here on YouTube, so if you enjoyed this video, then please be sure to like and subscribe. I have lots more videos on the way about other games I like Mass Effect, Dragon Age, Elden Ring, Disco Elysium, and Death Stranding. See you next time.